All right, this video is going to go over 10.3a and b, which is solving rationals. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't like any of this wording. Basically, you want to factor. Then you want to get a common denominator. And then you want to set numerator equal to each other and solve. And there's one other thing, you have to watch for restrictions, and I'll explain what that means. Okay, so you have to factor it fully. Let's look at number one. It's already factored fully. And when I say factored fully, you really care more so about the denominator, not the numerator. So factor fully, check, done. Common denominator though. Looking at these numbers, the common denominator there would be 8. So you have to, 3x over 8 is already good to go. But you have to change these to make them 8. So like this 1/2, it's going to get times by 4 over 4. So it's going to become 4 over 8. That's still a half right there. It just looks different because we scaled it to get our common denominator. And this 3x over 4, you're going to have to times that by 2 over 2. So it's going to be 6x over 8. So now I have a common denominator. And so once you have this, you just basically ignore the denominator and you set the numerator equal to each other. So like 3x plus 4 equals 6x. And then you just go solve it. So get your x's on one side and then divide. So minus 3x. 4 equals 3x, divide by 3. X equals 4/3. Nothing to it. Okay, look at the second one, number 2 here. If there's x's in the denominators, see like this first one didn't have any x's in the denominator, but if there are x's in the denominator, you're going to have most likely restrictions. These are numbers that x could not possibly be. And so basically what you do is you take each of these factors like x minus 2 and you set it equal to 0 and you solve it. Same thing with this one. When you get these numbers, 2 and negative 2, these are what x cannot equal. Cannot equal. Those are your restrictions, okay? And the reason is because if, for example, if you plugged in 2 here, you would get 3 over 0, which is undefined. So that's what makes a restriction on your problem. You need to check for that on every single one. So like here, every single time you see an x in the denominator, you need to think about restrictions. So here we go. Now we stick to the plan, and the plan was factor. Okay, it's factored. Common denominator. These denominators are different. So the common denominator is going to be x plus 2, x minus 2 for both of these things. So this fraction on the left needs the x plus 2. The fraction on the right needs the x minus 2. Don't forget, you're going to distribute here. So it's going to be like 3x plus 6 on top, and then x minus 2 over here, over your common denominator. Okay, and then once you have that common denominator, you can basically just ignore it and set the numerator equal to each other. So it'd look like this. 3x plus 6 equals x minus 2. Get your x's on one side. Get your numbers, oops, I'm getting ahead of myself there. Get your numbers on the other side. Divide. X equals negative 4. And so once you have this answer, you just have to go check and make sure it's not one of these restricted values. But that's how you would do that. Okay, moving right along. Look at number 3. First of all, get your restricted values. X could not be negative 3. Okay, now, common denominator. This 5 is currently over 1. The other ones have that x plus 3. They're good on the denominator, but this 5 right here, you're going to have to hit him with the x plus 3 over x plus 3. And you will have to distribute here. So it's going to look like this. 6 over x plus 3 didn't change. I'm distributing the 5 into this x plus 3 up here. So it's going to make 5x plus 15. And then that 1 over x plus 3 doesn't need to change either. Okay? Once the denominator is the same, you can basically ignore it and just look at your numerator. 6 plus 5x plus 15 equals 1. Combine your like terms. Subtract 21. Divide by 5. Nothing to it. And then just make sure it's not your restricted value up here. Okay, the next one. This, first of all, look at the 2 and make it over 1, okay? And go get your restricted values. So that would be x equals 0 and x equals 2. Those are your restricted values. So x cannot be 0 and x cannot be 2. All right, now you got to get a common denominator. And the common denominator for this is going to be x and x minus 2. It would also have the 1 there, but that's not going to really do anything. So you don't really need to pay attention to that. So you got to make every single denominator x minus 2. That means this fraction right here, he needs x minus 2. This fraction in the middle here, he needs x. And this fraction on the right, it needs both, an x and an x minus 2. Okay, so what this is going to look like is right here, you have a FOIL. You have to FOIL that out. So it's going to become x squared minus 4 if you do it correctly. Right here, that's just going to make x squared. And then over here, you have to multiply all of that. I would probably multiply the 2 times the x first. So it'd make 2x. And then distribute that 2x into that x minus 2. If you do it correctly, you should get 2x squared minus 4x. All right, so you had to get the common denominator there. Now, you can ignore the denominator and look at the numerator, and you've got x squared minus 4 plus x squared equals 2x squared minus 4x. All right, so once you write the numerator out, now over on the left side, I'd probably combine like terms. And now you want to get everything to one side, so make it equal 0. So I would minus 2x squared and add 4. What's your like terms? That 4 does not have an x on it. So you're looking at 0 equals, this cancels, and it just leaves negative 4x plus 4. All right, you probably actually didn't need to swing that plus 4, but that's okay. You're just going to move it back again. Divide x equals 1. And it's not a restricted value, so it's good to go. Okay, number 5. They have a common denominator. So I just, before I actually cancel that out, I'll put x cannot be 3. That's your restricted value there. All right, and so just worry about the numerator. 3x equals 2x plus 3. Get your x's on one side. X equals 3. That one would have been super easy, and you'll probably put your answer like that, and you'll move on with life, but you can't have a value of 3. So it gets tossed, and it's actually no solution. So always check your restricted values. Okay, and then this next one. Denominators are equal to each other. By the way, x could not be 4. All right, so set the numerators equal to each other. 3x equals 8, divide by 3, x equals 8/3. That one was too easy. Okay, now 10.3b is basically the same thing, but Looks like they step up the difficulty a little bit. So let's work through it. Looking at number 1, your denominator here, you really have to be able to find a common denominator. You've got a 2, a 5, and an x. A 2, a 5, and an x. So when that's all said and done, your common denominator is going to be 10x. That's what you have to get everything to say. So go get your restricted values. These, set them equal to 0 and solve, so x cannot be 0. And now we got to get all of these fractions to say 10x on the bottom. So like this first one needs a 5. The second one needs a 2. And the third one needs a 5x. So if you multiply all this out, you'll get 5 over 10x minus 4 over 10x equals 5x over 10x. You don't care about the denominator anymore. And so you've got 5 minus 4 equals 5x. 5 minus 4 is 1. Then you can divide by 5. X is a fifth. And that is not a restricted value. So that's my answer. Okay, the next one. Your common denominator is super important, but go ahead and get your restricted value. That right there means x cannot be 0. Okay. And so your common denominator here is going to be x on bottom. So this x is currently over 1, so is that 6. You have to make all of these say x. So this fraction on the left needs x over x. Same with the 6 over 1, it needs x over x. And so you're looking at x over x plus 8 over x equals 6. Sorry, that first one was x squared. That's my bad. Equals 6x over x, like that. Now you don't care about the denominator anymore. So you got x squared plus 8 equals 6x. This is going to be a trinomial, so you want to make it equal 0 so you can factor it. So minus 6x. And so now you could factor it and you'd get x minus 4, x minus 2. And the reason you factor it is because now you can just set each of those factors equal to 0 and solve. And get your answers. This one has 2 of them. Okay, moving right along. Looking at this next problem, the common denominator, these are currently over 1. The common denominator is going to be over x, and I'm going to have a restricted value of x cannot be 0. All right, so to make a common denominator of x, the fraction on the left needs x over x. The fraction on the right needs x over x. So you're looking at 2x squared over x plus 9 over x equals 3x squared over x. You no longer care about the denominator. So really you just have 2x squared plus 9 equals 3x squared. If you're trying to solve and you get like x squareds and stuff, you're probably going to want to make it equal 0. That way you can factor it. So here I would minus 2x squared and I would minus 9. Because then you're going to have 0 equals x squared minus 9, which factors as a difference of squares. X plus 3, x minus 3. And then you can just set each of these equal to 0. So like x plus 3 equals 0. So x is negative 3. And x minus 3 equals 0. So x equals positive 3 as well. Okay, this next one, your common denominator, well, first of all, you can't have 7. It's a restricted value. All right, now your common denominator is made up of x minus 7 and 2. So it's going to look like 2x minus 7 on the bottom of all these. So to make that happen, the fraction on the left needs a 2. Fraction in the middle needs an x minus 7. And the fraction on the right needs a 2. So it'd look like this. Don't forget to distribute here. 4x minus 18 plus x squared minus 7x equals 10. Okay, my marker stopped working there. That was weird. Equals 10 over 2x minus 7. Okay, now you don't care about the denominator anymore. So now you've got 4x minus 18 plus x squared minus 7x equals 10. I see an x squared, so I'm going to make it equal to 0. What's your like terms? So really you have x squared. I'm combining 4x and minus 7x to make minus 3x. I'm combining minus 18 and minus 10 to make minus 28. Now you can factor this, x minus 7x plus 4. Set each factor equal to 0. And then when you go to answer, just remember, x could not be 7. That was a restricted value. So this guy gets tossed. So your answer is only x equals negative 4. All right, and then this last one's probably the most challenging. Basically, factor everything first. You're going to get 3x plus 1 if you do a GCF. And then over here, you're going to get x plus 1, x minus 1. So this right here tells you x cannot be negative 1. This right here tells you x cannot be positive 1. Those are your restricted values. And your common denominator is going to be all three of these things. You're going to have a 3, you're going to have an x plus 1, and you're going to have an x minus 1. That's going to be your common denominator. So this fraction on the left needs an x minus 1. And the fraction on the right needs a 3. So distribute the 4, and you're going to get 4x minus 4. And then over here you got 36. All right. Now you don't care about the denominator anymore, so you got 4x minus 4 equals 36. Super easy, just add 4 and then divide. So 4x equals 40, divide by 4, x equals 10. And it's not a restricted value, so I'm good to go. All right, so that is how you solve a rational function or a rational equation. Make sure you're checking your restricted values. And yeah, just factor it, get that common denominator, ignore the denominator and set the numerators equal to each other, then go solve. Hope this video helped.